market participants and enthusiasts right around the world. You are here with James on behalf of Pivot Point Trading as I sit down and bring you a very brief market update. Also, what I will be doing is recapping a couple of stocks in our top 12 individual trade list which need to be closed out or liquidated before their respective earnings announcements. We also have a little bit of activity in terms of some other lists or trade lists that I have referenced in the past, and I will be bringing your attention also to the stock MU because today we saw another sudden sell-off very similar to HD as to what occurred last week that we were triggered into, which is relatively interesting. It does come as a little bit of a surprise, but however, let me just start with the overall markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average on Monday, at least, it pulled back down to the lows of what we saw on Friday. We spoke about this over the weekend. The markets are still in a rather delicate type of position. Today, however, we closed up over 120 points. We are left with another doji candlestick. It looks as though we are just creating another form of a type of rectangular stair-step pattern. So this is a consolidational pattern. Generally, we wait for these exponential moving averages to catch up to price, and then we see price action bounce off and continue in the direction of or at least the continuance of the underlying trend. That, of course, is to the upside. So everything is looking relatively healthy still. We haven't done any sort of technical damage or the breakdown of this bullish sort of phase that we find ourselves in. The S&P 500 closing up just under 10 points. We did essentially move to a new all-time high. You can see another sort of very similar to that of a doji candlestick. This is what we call a spinning top candle. You can see the little body here. It is a white candle indicating that the close was above the open of Tuesday's trading session. On Monday, we had another little inside day, a little bit of a slowdown, but it looks as though the stair-step pattern, which is sort of presenting itself in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, is already beginning to break out on the S&P 500. So we're ticking all of the boxes for a trend continuation. This is really sort of surmised or really best broken down by I guess the continuation of the NASDAQ to the upside. I mean, we tried to gap down during today's trading session. However, during the intraday session, we pushed on back up and we closed up positive 7 points for the trading session. We're starting to see some really nice bullish candlesticks come into the NASDAQ. However, we still have this open window dating back to the 18th and also the 19th of July. So you need to pay attention to that. If we do see a little bit of weakness in this market, expect it to be met with relative buying pressure opportunity down at these respective lows. At this particular point in time, we can't really address that because we're just simply not seeing any material pullback. Now, getting into some individual stock discussions, you need to be thinking about closing out of these trades if you're in them. I mean, Amazon here is a particular trade we were in at 1,027. We have earnings on Thursday this week, so you need to liquidate this trade. At the moment, we're closing out or very close to $1,041 a share. This is relatively profitable. It would most likely continue into an extremely profitable trade if we were able to hold it beyond Thursday, but as such we have earnings, and I would encourage you to sort of roll out of that position prior to that particular date. Also, Boeing Airlines scheduled for tomorrow. It doesn't matter whether you're in at 206 or 209. Here we are, we're printing at 212.62. You should be out of this particular stock also. All right, so continuing on, we've got Baidu breaking above 194.34. We're closing just shy of $200 a share. Again, this is another stock scheduled for Thursday. You should be rolling out of this during tomorrow's trading session for a profit, and then forget it as we move into that earnings announcement. Caterpillar has reported earnings. The video is up on the private side as per the breakdown of that trade moving forward, so I'm excited about that. What I'll do, I'll skip on over into COP. COP, again, we're drilling into this support. I've spoken about this. I've spoken about the turbulence. This is what we assume to be intermediate and also macro support. You can see that we're getting the beginning of a turn. This doesn't really come as a surprise. However, once again, earnings on Thursday. So please liquidate this if you were in at 43.53. And I wouldn't even have this open at 44.06 for Wednesday's trading session because it's just simply too close to that earnings announcement. The same is true for CVX. If you are in this, I would liquidate this for probably a marginal loss, and I'd just be looking to trade the gap, which again, I'll bring to you on the private side of the website under that pro analysis class. Google is a stock which has also released its earnings announcement. That video is also up on the private side too. Goldman Sachs reported last week, but we can't really do a whole lot with that particular stock. Netflix is continuing to the upside, which is relatively interesting. We've got Apple too. You need to close or begin thinking about closing out of this. This is a share which isn't reporting this week. Instead, it is Tuesday next week. It doesn't matter if you're in at 148, 149, or 152. You're profitable on all three sides of this open order. But again, I'd be putting that money in my back pocket and more or less forgetting about that particular trade too. Now, what I want to speak about very quickly is also not HD, MU, because today we saw this stock gap down a pretty decent volume as well. You can see the entry here, 30.77. I spoke about this not too long ago. We were coming back up into this resistance area. We had a bidirectional trade set up to the bullish side at 33.15 if it broke above, or we had the rollover trade at 30.77. I looked at this over the weekend and I personally put it in my own account. We're trading at 30.03, so it's a quick 75 cents or 74 cents at this particular point in time, down $1.61. Targets on this, first of all, are down at 29.20, and then also if you break through this particular trigger or that target down here, we've got a subsequent target with this bullish trend line that you can see coming into play since 2016. So something to be thinking about. Also, this is relatively early on in the weekly construction. This looks like an evening star reversal. It's coupled with that of an engulfing candlestick and a couple of high wave dojis as well. So it looks as though potentially we're sort of establishing an intermediate peak for MU. I'm not talking about a terminal rollover. However, this type of gap here, it truly looks like a reversal gap. So we'll have to pay close attention to that. But another interesting, or at least some form of a surprising stock that I didn't think we'd be triggered into, but as at the end of Tuesday, we have been, if you had the conditional entry open anyway, you should be in that and you should be looking relatively profitable too. Facebook, you can see how there is still a bit of profit on the table up here if you didn't get stopped out at 162.84. Personally, I did. So my trade ended here, and this was going back to Thursday last week. The entry was 152.37. Here we are, we're still printing above this level. We're at 165.37. So that's a pretty decent trade, about $8 of intrinsic value if you are still in the trade. But you should be more or less out of this on Facebook as well. I wouldn't be speculating into that earnings announcement. So in the grand scheme of things, also just to go back into the first watch list, the Pro Analysis class, which is where we have a look at the US equities and of course our top 12 individual trade list. We also saw Tesla, by the way, start to peek its head up above 337.10. Now this started to see the breakout on Monday. We saw a little bit of a hammer candlestick. Pardon me, a hangman at a little bit of a resistance point. It is still marginally profitable, but pay attention to this. The earnings for this is Wednesday week. This is scheduled for the 2nd of August. So we'll see how this works out over the next 3 trading sessions, Wednesday through Friday, and I'll give you more sort of a better update on this particular stock. But as at the close on Tuesday, this is still looking relatively healthy as well. So that's what I wanted to speak about. As at the Tuesday afternoon, the markets have been a little bit sluggish. Obviously, the media headlines at the moment are all printing, or at least in terms of sentiment, they are rather bullish, especially with the S&P 500 and also the NASDAQ pushing up into those historical highs or new historical highs. But the Dow Jones Industrial Average is still moving sideways, although it was a relatively positive day, up 121 points. We have a doji candlestick, which is relatively interesting too. So on that note, have a fantastic evening, everyone. I'll be back with you later in the week for another market and trade analysis. Those earning gap plays, by the way, are up online on the private side too. All the best, everyone. Have an enjoyable Tuesday evening. Goodbye.